Welcome back to the 15-Minute Library. Our mission is to distill the world's most powerful books into actionable 15-minute masterclasses so you can master your life one chapter at a time. Today we are diving into a modern masterpiece, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This isn't a book about spreadsheets, charts, or interest rates. It's a book about the person staring back at you in the mirror. Let's start with a story about two men. The first was a high-profile, Harvard-educated executive at Merrill Lynch. He was so successful that he retired in his 40s to become a philanthropist. He once walked into a restaurant and handed a waiter a stack of $100 bills just to show off. He lived in an 18,000 square foot house with 2 pools and 11 bathrooms. The second man was Ronald Reed. Ronald was a janitor and a gas station attendant. He lived in a small house, drove a used car, and spent his life unnoticed. When both men died, the executive was bankrupt. His home in foreclosure. Ronald Reed, he died with $8 million in the bank, leaving most of it to his local library and hospital. How does a janitor, with no formal education, outperform a finance genius? Because doing well with money has very little to do with how smart you are, and everything to do with how you behave. Before we begin, I want you to ask yourself one question. If you had enough money to never work again, what would you do with your Tuesday afternoon? Keep that answer in mind as we go through these lessons. The first lesson Housel teaches us is that despite how it looks from the outside, no one is actually crazy. We all look at money through a different lens based on when and where we were born. Think about someone born in 1970. The S&P 500 grew tenfold between their 13th and 30th birthdays. They view investing as a literal wealth machine. Now, think about someone born in 1950. The market went exactly nowhere for them during that same period of their lives. When these two people argue about stocks, neither is wrong. They are simply victims of their own era. Your personal experience with money makes up a tiny fraction of what has happened in the world, but it accounts for about 80% of how you think the world works. When you see someone making a financial choice that looks stupid to you, remember, they are playing a different game, with a different set of rules based on a different history. Understanding this kills judgment and breeds empathy. Beyond our own choices, we have to account for 2 siblings that guide every outcome in life: luck and risk. Think about Bill Gates. In 1968, there were roughly 300 million high school-age kids in the world. Only about 300 of them went to Lakeside School in Seattle, the only school in the world with a computer at that time. Bill Gates was one of them. That is luck. But for every Bill Gates, there is a Kent Evans. Kent was Bill's best friend and just as brilliant. But Kent died in a mountaineering accident before graduating. That is risk. Be careful who you praise and admire, and be careful who you look down upon. Focus less on specific individuals and more on broad patterns. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. When things are going well, remember you aren't invincible. When things go wrong, remember you aren't necessarily a failure. Perhaps the hardest financial skill, and the one that ruins the most people, is getting the goalpost to stop moving. This is the social comparison trap. In the US, we are bombarded with the next level. Housel tells the story of Rajat Gupta, a man who became the CEO of McKinsey and was worth $100 million. But he wanted to be a billionaire. He traded insider information, got caught, and went to prison. He risked what he had and needed for what he didn't have and didn't need. Happiness, as it turns out, is just results minus expectations. If your expectations keep rising every time you get a raise, you will never feel wealthy. You must realize when you have enough, or you will eventually push until you break. Realize that enough is not too little. It's the point where you realize that more money will no longer increase your happiness, but it will increase your stress. If we want to understand how wealth is truly built, we have to look at the confounding nature of compounding. If I asked you how Warren Buffett became so rich, you'd say, yeah, he's a great investor. And you'd be right, but you'd miss the most important part. He's been a great investor for 80 years. Buffett began investing seriously when he was 10. By the time he was 30, he had $1 million. No, 81.5 billion of his 84 billion net worth came after his 65th birthday. His skill is investing, but his secret is time. Most people try to maximize returns, but Housel argues that mediocre returns sustained for an uninterrupted period will always beat high returns that end in a crash. Compounding is like a snowball. It starts small, and for a long time, nothing seems to happen. Then, suddenly, it explodes. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to be uninvestable. You need to survive long enough for the math to do the heavy lifting. Now, there is a massive difference between getting wealthy and staying wealthy. Getting wealthy requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But staying wealthy requires the exact opposite. It requires humility and a healthy dose of paranoia. Housel says we should be optimistic about the future, but paranoid about what will prevent us from getting to that future. This is the margin of safety. In the 1920s, Jesse Livermore was the richest stock trader in the world. During the 1929 crash, he made $100 million in a single day. He felt invincible. 4 years later, he had lost it all. Plan on, the plan not going according to plan. This gap for error is what allows you to survive the inevitable crashes of the market so you can stay in the game. Save like a pessimist, but invest like an optimist. But why do we listen to market doomsayers more than visionaries? Because of the seduction of pessimism. Pessimism sounds like someone trying to help you, while optimism sounds like a sales pitch. If I tell you the market will crash 40% next year, you'll give me your full attention. If I tell you it will grow 10% for the next 10 years, you'll likely shrug it off. Pessimism is intellectually seductive and sounds smarter, but optimism is where the money is made. Realize that progress happens slowly, but setbacks happen fast. Don't let a scary headline derail an 80-year plan. This leads us to the most famous lesson in the book. Wealth is what you don't see. When you see someone driving a $100,000 Ferrari, the only thing you know about their wealth is that they have $100,000 less than they did before they bought the car. We judge wealth by what we see: houses, cars, Instagram posts. But that is rich. Rich is current income. Wealth is hidden. Wealth is the income not spent. It is the optionality to buy something later. It is the freedom to leave a job you hate. Every dollar you save is a piece of your future that you own. It is the gap between your ego and your income. It's that simple and that difficult. Ultimately, the highest dividend money pays is time. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is the ultimate goal of finance. It's not about the Ferrari. It's about the Tuesday afternoon. As we wrap up today's summary, look back at your answer to my first question. Are your current financial habits bringing you closer to that Tuesday afternoon, or are they just feeding your ego? Money is more about psychology than math. Master your mind, and you will master your bank account. Before you go, I want to hear from you in the comments. What is one rich thing you've stopped buying so that you can start building wealth instead? If this summary gave you a new perspective on wealth, hit that like button and subscribe to the 15-Minute Library. Join us next week as we unlock another masterwork. Until then, keep your ego small and your wealth invisible.